This week on African Perspective. Is the DRC ready to go to the polls? Join us on Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on SABC News Channel 404.
Yes, indeed. The second edition of African Perspective will be aired tonight at 9:30, anchored by Tsepiso Makwetla, who joins us in studio. Welcome to you, and you're looking lovely and the
so
part.
Much,
but we're not looking at African fashion this week.
We should at some point.
We should. I hope you do. The DRC. So Joseph Kabila has been sort of hanging on. What's expected around these elections?
So, as you know, Francis, the DRC goes to the polls on the 23rd of December. The Great Lakes region leaders held a summit this week to talk about regional peace and security. And of course, the DRC very much at the heart of that, because the conflict in the DRC has drawn in a lot of the countries that border, that surround the DRC. So it's of great importance to them to ensure that there is not only a credible election, but a peaceful one. We also saw that the UN itself had a visit over the weekend, not only to consult with the Electoral Commission, but to also speak to various parties about whether or not the groundwork has been laid for this to happen. And as you say, one of the pillar issues, by the way, is that of the what is called as the New Year's Eve agreement, which was signed in January last year, in which President Joseph Kabila agrees that he's not going to stand for elections, was also allowed for the participation of Etienne Tshisekedi to be among those 25 presidential candidates.
All right, so looking ahead to that, this has drawn in so many people, including South Africa, our soldiers, and a bit of a stain there, the implications of us fathering children, those paternity tests, economic exploitation. How's that playing out right now?
So South Africa is sort of the guarantor for peace in the DRC, because we have the largest troop deployment there. We've been very much pivotal to the talks leading up to the settlement, the negotiated settlement in the DRC, and also ensuring that elections are held. Our Defense Minister, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, saying that they are in no way going to pull out of the DRC because they're committed to peace. And this is what the UN Security Council wants to see, that there is enough logistics on the ground to ensure that the DRC does have peaceful elections.
All right, closer to home, Zimbabwe, and that book in your hand.
Yes. So we are going to interview Rain Ndlovu, who is the author of this book, In the Jaws of the Crocodile. And what this book is about really is the rise of Emmerson Mnangagwa as president of Zimbabwe and the fall of Robert Mugabe, his predecessor. And the crocodile refers to the aura which Emmerson Mnangagwa is set to have, and which he's set to use against his opponents to really lock them in a political struggle. So his rise to power dealt with here, and there's even a quote from him saying that he never really expected that President Robert Mugabe would fire him. But what's interesting today is that Francis, the opposition leader Nelson Chamisa, has actually called for a national dialogue on the legitimacy of Emmerson Mnangagwa. So it'll be very interesting to hear those insights into the minds and workings of Emmerson Mnangagwa and his legitimacy, of course.
Yeah, but so the crocodile, he was seen as Mugabe's enforcer at one stage. Now he's the bring your business to Zimbabwe, we are peaceful and stable. So still a bit of an unknown, I think, to many people.
Look, I mean, the verdict is still out, and President Mnangagwa himself will tell you that he's still a newly elected president, really hasn't had time to roll out some of the plans that he's put in place. And just very quickly, there are calls for a protest action in Zimbabwe over this.
All right, thank you so much for giving us that preview. We will hopefully all be watching tonight at 9:30. African Perspective, hosted by Tsepiso Makwetla, coming up again tonight. It only launched last week very successfully. Thank you for being with us. We take a short